Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to Nespi Reacts, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Kivo Van Twist, titled Twilight Tears. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on YouTube here, the official music video for it, released just 3 days ago with 14k views, which is a fantastic start to proceedings. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. Very solemn beginning.
Alone and warm, sinking in the ache of loneliness. Found peace and black as it bled into my bones. Each goodbye left a sign of bitterness. Still I rose in wounds forged in blood and stone. I became what haunts the light.
Great lower harmony.
Twilight tears, blood right. I fall far beyond this year. Shadows rise in the night, lost in the past that won't revive. Twilight tears. Set the reason.
Great transition there.
Each one something grief. The world around me crumbles, but drawn to what I always miss. A heart long dead, caught in an endless breath. I remain forever on the edge of the abyss. Silently I disappear. Twilight tears, blood right. I fall far beyond this year. Shadows rise in the night, lost in the past that won't revive. In the hollow night, forever bound, chasing no trace behind, never to be found. In the hollow night, forever bound.
Interesting cinematography there.
Chasing no trace behind, never to be found. Never to be found. The thirst for dreams that fills my grave, whispers that satisfy in what I need.
Great chord response.
The crimson wheel of bitter thrill will never fail, will never fail.
That was a really solid 16-note transition there.
Silently I disappear. Twilight, Twilight tears.
great bluesy phrasing there as well, I like the edge to it.
night, forever bound, chasing your trace, but never to be found. The silence lingers where your voice once stayed. A curse remains from the choice I made.
I mean, in nearly 7 minutes, it fleshes itself out neatly. I feel like it's a good use of real estate. Kivo Van Twist, all rights reserved, 2025, Red Wolf Studio, UCP Unknown Company Productions, as well as Sassem Luxembourg, which I think that's where Kivo Van Twist is located. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Kivo Van Twist titled Twilight Tears. In this section, I'm going to give my overall thoughts on the track as well as sort of like a song analysis covering everything from sort of like vocals through to production, as well as any sort of applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts on it from our listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? If I'm honest, I had another listen through it afterwards, primarily because I heard Twilight Tears and some of the other keywords, but I wasn't necessarily sure about what the track was about after listening through it. I just don't think I got all the words through clearly. So after having another go listening through it, I think that it is about someone who's up at night with the difficulties and sort of like drama that they have sort of like suffer through. The choices they've made are coming back to haunt them. The shadows are rising. And I think that they're struggling to get through the night and sort of cope with those things. And it seems like they've lost someone very important to them. And I think that it's something that people will be able to relate to, you know, the regrets that you have late at night. It's not a sort of a singular, unique thing. And I think that's part of what makes music so effective. But I just appreciate that Kivo Van Twist has put their twist on it. And I just want to sort of comment on the video itself. I thought the video was really cool. It was nice to sort of have him in that sort of like gothic kind of castle, kind of outdoorsy sort of aesthetic there. I can just see at the moment he's got his like rose in his mouth and everything like that, and he's sort of dancing around the place in a state of melancholy. It's very curious. It's a very cool video. Vocally, I thought that it was well textured and it was well decorated. The focal point, the vocals, you need to be able to hit the notes correctly. We were very comfortable in a head and chest voice. We had dynamic range to our vocals. We weren't saying the intensity the entire time. We characterized ourselves really neatly. We were vulnerable when we needed to be, but we also had some sort of catchy bluesy phrasings within those chorus sections with the main melodies. And I also liked how the backing vocals either call and responded on the sides or were unified with them in some of the chorus sections and sort of applied the hook lines. And there were some lady vocals, I think, if I'm not mistaken, as well. There's like group vocals which added further oomph and emphasis and size and heft and purpose to those things. So ultimately, I just feel like the vocals overall are really well handled. There was kind of wistful kind of reverb kind of tone to them, which made them seem like they were going through their sort of own head and their own thoughts. And it worked really neatly alongside a lot of the kind of guitar and drum ideas that were pulling through the piece. So I feel like the expression and vocal performance was tight. Structurally, it's 6 minutes 51. It's a long song, and it's way outside of the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, where if it's less than 2 minutes, sometimes you're missing some important context without lack of, due to a lack of underdevelopment. But if it's over 4 minutes, then you're really needing to be careful about how much you repeat things. It's either going to need to be through composed to like different chapters or parts of the journey, or it's going to need to be the case of there being like further development and enhancement, and even, like you need extra sort of spice and pizzazz to see us through. Overall, I think that we managed to accomplish that here. There were different instrumental sections as well as twists and turns, interlude intervals, verses and choruses, etc. And we allowed the instruments to breathe. It wasn't just vocal focus the entire time. I think there's a limit to maybe how much context we could apply here. Granted, there was a lot of repetition of certain lines, and it's simply because this is more of a sort of a mood piece as opposed to trying to sort of like further elaborate upon a concept. I don't think we were trying to overcomplicate the situation for the listener. It was more something kind of nod your head along, kind of sort of relate to, and the music changed behind the vocals as well, which I think helped to sell it. I think the track starting with the guitar riff there, with some articulation and interesting sort of like legato devices there, with the key accompaniment, immediately sort of summoned the idea of this being a ballad. And I think that considering the subject matter, that was very appropriate. It was very low key, and it reminded me of a lot kind of like alternate kind of gothic rock from like late 80s, early 90s. I liked that time of things. And like the vocals come in so smoothly, and it's very kind of, again, like fragile, but not in the way which is sort of like uninteresting. It's great to sort of build from that point, but it just seems like an authentic performance. He sort of drowns himself in the water that he's surrounded in the abyss. When we come into the drums later on and we're working with a dun 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 dun, kind of a sort of a swingy kind of flow to the eighth note patterns there. The drums are more sort of kind of like we're sadly dancing through the environment or the situation that we found ourselves in. I like that the crash and kick after that little pause before the chorus was so impactful, and in part due to the production, but also the composition. We enter there feeling sort of well-rounded and confident about the next part. It's just, that's the first 45 seconds of it, and we fly by. We also allow ourselves to further explore the guitar parts going into the upper sort of like elements there in the frequency spectrum, and we feel the frequency spectrum as well with the additional vocal takes. So we're not having everything at once. It leads into it, but by the first minute or so, you've kind of got your stars connected. And I also think there's some interesting sort of like hi-hat shuffles that we have. In general, there's a lot of really cool sort of like hi-hat and sort of right-oriented crash. We explore the entire drum kit, lots of interesting ideas with the main four rhythms in music, the quarters, eighths, triplets, and sixteenths we're adhered to here. We're exploring the possibilities in terms of groove and pace. But it's also the dynamic range of the performance as well. We have ghost notes on the kit there, which I think are great. Like, again, you can probably tell that the drums are one of my favorite instruments within this piece, as well as the vocals being very well handled, but just the kind of depth and the believability of the drum performance as well. You can tell someone was actually playing the kit and knew what they were doing. And there's a relative simplicity to the approach and the guitar takes, outside of things such as the solo sections and stuff like that, but just there's enough technicality to the riff to make it interesting, but not too much to kind of make it sort of like adverse. We have these interesting intervals sometimes that we play. They're very kind of chimey and sort of meticulous in the respect that they are kind of outer-worldly, like there's some sort of higher calling there. I don't know how to describe it. It's just very sort of surreal, and I think that maybe sort of infers the situation they're in sort of psychologically, the kind of suffering that they're going through. But just again, as I mentioned, the exploration of the frequency spectrum with the different octave pitches with the guitar and with the vocal parts, should I say, are fantastic, and these sort of alternate sub-leads are well supported and meaningful. I like at the halfway point we're still like including new elements there, which is just a sensible decision from a structural perspective. But we have our introduced ingredients not overstaying their welcome. They make a wonderful decision here to kind of be more sort of like supportive of maybe the turn that the vocalist is having at that stage, figuring things out. And when we have the guitar solo coming in, it's just a wonderful foil working around the various kind of like slides and bends and being more of a sort of a different melody built upon what we've already had vocally. I just think it's very sensible. And again, it works well with a kind of melodic solo, like appropriate for a ballad context. And it's an extended guitar solo as well. There's different stages to it. It kind of middles around the middle of its fretboard for a while, and then kind of rolls between hammer-ons and pull-offs there, and it ascends into like an upper bend there, and you think you're done, but no, it continues to sort of build. And as the guy in the top hat dances around the place, you just realize, hey, no, we've really sensibly thought about what we're going to do with the 7 minutes of time, and we're not just again trying to infer more dialogue. To have that really cool sort of drum fill, like working with the toms, the snares, and the kicks there, maybe double kicks as well. To delete that out of there and for things to go down again is just great in terms of the bell curve, allowing us to go up for something else. It justifies additional length. The drums say to the guitar, hey, we're doing something different now. As a listener, it's very, very effective. And with the last sort of 2 minutes of tracks kind of more sort of riffing on a lot of the realizations or sort of epiphanies we've had up until that point, and maybe sort of accepting the position that we're in as one that's going to take a while to get out of. The guitar meters around with various pentatonic and blues kind of lead scale riffs there. The vocals kind of riff off some of the lines they've had previously, and you're left to kind of contend with the Twilight Tears and sort of like console them. I like that we add a further kind of sizzle and sort of like sass to the distorted guitar parts as well as we go on. I just think having that a bit of extra oomph and sort of fire in the mid-range makes the track seem like it's building its like further and adds more compositional diversity to the mix. And I think that's honestly all we need in this piece there. Again, it's that you got a lot of what you needed to understand what was going on if you were, again, like listening through it without trying to sort of analyze everything at the same time like I am. You'll hear the vocals and lyrics and you'll kind of absorb them and understand that part, and then you just get a kind of a plethora of interesting sort of ideas after that, which, you know, granted, albeit mirror a classic rock kind of styling with some alternate kind of like twists. Again, I love the tone choices on the different instruments, but that's more of a production thing. You have enough with the different chapters, despite there being sort of more predictable kind of verse chorus stylings, to be able to sort of see your way through it. Thematically, it's minor oriented, which I think is a sensible decision. If it was major, it should be a little bit kind of surprising, I suppose, or a little bit kind of like maybe a little bit too much. I say it's melancholic primarily because it's more the audiovisual experience that you have with the guy kind of dancing around and everything like that, and mixed with the sadness of the music there. You're kind of trying to, it's like he's dancing with the understanding or acceptance of it. And like outside of some of the interesting kind of like interval choices there that aren't sort of more sort of with major and minor sort of like triads, that you typically have more of a straightforward experience harmonically, where it's easy to understand the mood of the piece there. The bluesy phrasings on lead guitar really sort of like sell it. The keys again perform that function as a ballad accompaniment, and the drums are just a fantastic metronome to the piece to keep everything moving together without a note out of place. And I suppose the bass guitar on the low end as well. I haven't spoken about the bass yet. I presume with lack of kind of like prominence, it's basically supporting the root notes, which I think is a sensible decision because of the amount of sort of like different ideas we have on top of it. The studio recording, mixing and mastering is very, very good. I'm really happy with how it sounds. I think the vocals were captured really elegantly. I think the various guitar tones with the cleans or choruses, or like the distorted lead guitar tones, etc., they have their own personality and identity in the mix, and they're easy to listen to. The drums have a nice sense of body to them without being overproduced, and they are, you know, like nice and prominent, and they're spread around the stereo field as well. I think the bass guitar on the low end as well is kind of subtle, but it's very supportive in that low end and kind of rounding out the frequency spectrum. There are no weird resonances in the frequency spectrum. Again, the music surrounds you in headphones, stereo field is filled out well. There's dynamic range. The start of the track is a lot quieter than the end of it, but in a way that's very tasteful and professional sounding from a sort of studio production perspective. And then the vocals and the backing vocals aren't overproduced. They're notched, and they have EQ'd and compression and stuff like that. And I like that the backing vocals are on the side, and then, you know, the main vocals in the center there, they go backwards and forwards or together. It's just very sensible foundational stuff on the studio side, but just you get presence for everything, and it's nice without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting is handled. Ultimately, this is just an extremely positive review of this track from Kivo Van Twist, titled Twilight Tears. I don't have any applicable constructive critique. I mean, like, I know that I didn't get all the words through clearly, and we could talk about enunciation, but I think there's also like an accent or something like that. I'm just not used to it, which is totally fine. I also wasn't, initially on the immediate first listen, I wasn't sure if we completely justified, but then I listened back to it, and when you listen to a track a second time, you can kind of hear the nuances and variations with some of the alternate sort of sublead passages and stuff like that. So it does make sense. And again, tracks don't need to consistently be changing. Sometimes you can just appreciate and nod your head to the groove, and especially if the first half of it has got like a lot of sort of like variety or transitions or interesting sort of meter to it, especially with the ghost notes and sort of sub layers of the drum kits as well, like the hi-hat pads and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot to appreciate here, so it's totally fine. From a general listener's perspective, it's just a very mature composition, and I listened to Kivo Van Twist, and I think they've got a lot of potential, and I look forward to seeing where they go next, although they don't need my luck. They clearly understand what they're doing. So ultimately, you know, that's just a really positive review again of this track from Kivo Van Twist titled Twilight Tears, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need to help more than ever with all the great stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next SB Reacts. Spiderhands out.